Today, I want to walk you through something that comes up constantly in my practice, which is certain phrases that avoidant individuals say that actually reveal something huge, even though on the surface they might sound small or even a little frustrating. What I mean is this: if your partner has an avoidant attachment style and they say certain things to you, it's a sign that you are the person they want to be with. You're the one they've chosen, and more than likely, the one they're going to keep choosing going forward. But let's slow down for a moment, because being chosen isn't simply about someone saying your name, staying in your life, or making a promise about the future. Real choice is revealed through consistency. It appears in the small decisions they make when nobody is watching, in the effort they continue making after the excitement fades, and in the way they respond when the relationship becomes difficult. Someone can feel deeply for you and still struggle to choose you consistently. Fear, uncertainty, unresolved wounds, or emotional immaturity can interfere with what a person genuinely wants. That's why the most meaningful kind of choosing isn't based on intense words or dramatic moments. It's built through actions repeated over time. If they keep returning to you, keep making space for you, keep communicating when things become uncomfortable, and keep finding ways to protect the connection rather than escape from it, then their choice becomes much clearer. They're not simply responding to a temporary emotion, they're participating in a pattern of commitment, and perhaps that's what makes this idea so powerful. You don't need to spend every day wondering whether you're still the person they want. You shouldn't have to decode every message, analyze every silence, or search for hidden meanings in every change of behavior. When someone truly wants to build something with you, their actions gradually remove the need for constant interpretation. Being chosen should feel less like winning a competition and more like recognizing mutual intention. You choose them, they choose you, and both of you continue making that choice as life changes around you. So if you're wondering whether you're the person they will keep choosing, don't look only at what they felt yesterday. Look at what they consistently do today and what they are willing to build tomorrow. Because the strongest form of being chosen isn't a promise someone makes once, it's a decision they keep making. I think this is worth sitting with for a second, because so much of what gets written and talked about online when it comes to avoidant attachment focuses on the frustrating parts, the mixed signals, the pulling away, the difficulty expressing love in the ways we're used to seeing it expressed. And all of that is real, I'm not dismissing any of it. But what tends to get left out of the conversation is that avoidant individuals do communicate love and commitment. It just doesn't always look the way we've been taught love is supposed to look. It comes out sideways sometimes, through small gestures, through specific phrases, through actions rather than declarations. And if you don't know what to listen for, it's incredibly easy to miss entirely. Why does this matter so much? Because people with avoidant attachment are notoriously unclear about commitment. That's honestly part of the whole issue with dating or being with someone avoidant. They don't sit you down and say, I want to get married within a year, let's map out how we get there. I know a lot of anxious or preoccupied partners would love nothing more than that kind of clarity. But that's just not how avoidant people operate. It's not even how they think. Their internal monologue tends to sound more like, wow, this person is so accommodating, what can I do for them? Or, this person has put up with me and all the things I consider my flaws. I want to give even more to them. I never want to lose this person. Being with them feels incredible. I'm genuinely happy. That's the internal experience. And eventually down the road, they might be the one who says yes when you bring up marriage. Or in some cases, they might even bring it up themselves. That's not always guaranteed, but it's the likely outcome when they're doing the work to heal, when they're adjusting, and when they genuinely love you. So the real question becomes, how can you spot that they feel this way about you without them ever directly saying, I want to marry you in 2 years, or in 5 years? I'm going to walk through some very specific examples. These phrases don't even touch on commitment directly, but they reveal a lot about how an avoidant person actually feels about you underneath the surface. I'll explain the reasoning behind each one as we go. I do want to mention that these examples are pretty specific to avoidant attachment, not gender specific at all, just specific to the avoidant pattern itself. And when I say avoidant, I'm typically referring to dismissive avoidant attachment or a fearful avoidant style that leans heavily dismissive. This isn't a universal rule that applies to every single case, but in my clinical experience, it comes up constantly. I see so many avoidant clients, more than you'd probably expect, and this specific topic gets brought up again and again. Honestly, if I hadn't made a video on this by now, I would feel like I was leaving out something genuinely useful, because this information matters. I hope you can understand where I'm coming from with all of this. And just so you know, this won't be the only video I make on the topic. I plan to keep making more of these anytime I notice a pattern worth talking about. The first phrase I want to highlight is something like this: "What can I do so you don't think that way about me?" This usually comes up right after you've expressed something negative about them, or after you've shared that you're feeling anxious about something in the relationship. And instead of getting defensive or shutting down, they ask you directly, "What can I do to earn your trust back?" Essentially, they're saying, "I would never do that to you." If they were more emotionally articulate, that's probably what they'd say outright, but that's usually not how it comes out. Instead, it comes out as, "What can I do so you don't think that way about me?" Before I get into a concrete example, I want to explain why this phrase specifically indicates that you're the one for them. Because I know some people will hear this and think, how is that significant? People say things like that to strangers all the time. But here's the thing, avoidant individuals typically don't. A lot of avoidant people genuinely could not care less about being honest regarding how others perceive them, or even how people feel in general. And to be clear, this isn't because they have narcissistic personality disorder or any kind of personality disorder. Although to be fair, some avoidant individuals absolutely can have co-occurring conditions like that, but I'm specifically talking about someone who simply has an avoidant attachment style. Nothing more complicated than that. It's not that they're intentionally being cold or dismissive. It usually traces back to how they were raised. As children, they were essentially modeled the belief that you shouldn't spend energy thinking about other people's feelings, that you have to prioritize yourself, that independence is the highest value. They were often reprimanded, subtly or overtly, for being too focused on other people's emotional states. Instead, they learned they had to be strong, as self-sufficient as humanly possible, someone who doesn't need anyone else for anything. And in order to convincingly not need anybody, you also have to stop caring about how other people feel about you. So from an avoidant person's internal logic, if you start caring deeply about how someone perceives you and how they feel, that in itself becomes a form of needing that person, which means if they need you to not think a certain way about them, they are, whether they'd ever admit it consciously or not, revealing that they need you. This kind of conditioning usually doesn't come from one dramatic moment. It's rarely a single event a person can point back to and say, that's where it started. More often it's cumulative, built up over years of small interactions, a parent who got uncomfortable with too much emotional expression and subtly redirected the conversation, a household where independence was praised and vulnerability was quietly discouraged, maybe not through cruelty, but through simple omission, through never really being asked how something felt, only what was accomplished. Over enough repetitions, a child learns the lesson without anyone ever having to state it outright. Needing things from other people is risky. Depending on someone else is unreliable. The safest path forward is to become someone who doesn't need much from anyone at all. That lesson gets carried forward into adulthood, into romantic relationships, long after the environment that created it has changed. I know this might sound like a small thing, almost silly to make such a big deal out of, but it genuinely carries weight when an avoidant person says something like, "What can I do so you don't think that way about me?" It means your perception of them actually matters to them. It's woven directly into how they experience their own emotions, because caring about your view of them means they need you on some level. Whether that's something they can articulate or not, it's true regardless. This same underlying pattern is also the reason avoidant individuals often come across as not caring about other people generally. I know that sounds blunt, but it largely comes down to that early conditioning, being taught over and over to be fiercely independent. That's also why they tend to struggle with self-awareness and can come across as stubborn. They were essentially raised with the belief that you have to handle everything completely on your own, that toughness means never asking for help, that needing assistance is basically a sign of weakness. So naturally, listening closely to someone else's perspective on you and letting that perspective actually shift how you see yourself can feel threatening or weak to them. And a huge part of developing genuine self-awareness involves being willing to hear how other people experience you. But that's essentially the opposite of what avoidant individuals are taught to do growing up. So when they say something like, "What can I do so you don't think that way about me? So you don't feel that way about me? So you don't believe I'm like that?" what they're really expressing is a need to prove something to you. They need to prove that they're a good person in your eyes. That need is genuinely significant to someone with an avoidant attachment style, even if, again, it might sound like a small or obvious thing on the surface. I know I keep saying this sounds silly, but I promise I'm just being straightforward and honest with all of you. Let me give you a concrete scenario to illustrate this. Let's say you notice your partner texting someone and something about it feels off to you. Maybe you're genuinely worried they might be cheating. For the sake of this example, let's say they're not actually doing anything wrong at all. You bring up that it's bothering you. In response, they comfort you. They thank you for being honest with them instead of bottling it up. They reassure you on several different levels. Essentially, they're doing all the things a caring, emotionally present partner should do for someone they love. And on top of that, they might say something like, "I'm not talking to anyone else, and I never will." Avoidant individuals genuinely do say things like this. It might not come out gently or delicately, it might come out blunt or even a little sharp, but the underlying message is clear. I only want you. If I didn't, I wouldn't even be here right now. But it doesn't necessarily stop there. Sometimes, if you're still not fully convinced, or if you express that you're still feeling a bit uncomfortable or unsure, maybe you mention that they've seemed distant lately and you're wondering if something's going on, or maybe you point out that they've been on their phone a lot while you're talking. They might respond with something like, "What can I do so that you don't feel this way about me?" And some avoidant individuals want to prove their loyalty so badly in that moment that they'll say things like, "Just look through my phone if you want," or "I'll delete Instagram entirely. I promise I'm not doing anything." Now, some people hearing that might think it sounds suspicious, like why would someone go to such extreme lengths to prove their innocence unless they had something to hide? But often that's not what's happening at all. Usually they genuinely aren't doing anything wrong. It's just that the idea of you feeling this way about them is deeply painful for them, and they don't have a lot of practice sitting with or processing that particular emotion. So sometimes their reaction can come across as a little intense, or I don't want to say immature exactly, but maybe underdeveloped in terms of emotional regulation. It's not a character flaw. It's just that they haven't had much practice navigating this specific kind of vulnerability. So it comes out a little exaggerated. "No, I promise I'll never do that. I'll delete the app entirely. I don't even care about that stuff anymore." Or, "Here, just go through my messages. I have literally nothing to hide." Some avoidant individuals genuinely operate this way because they're determined to prove beyond any doubt that they're not the kind of person who would betray your trust like that. And that's precisely why, when an avoidant person responds this way, it's a strong signal that you really are the one for them. Avoidant individuals typically don't invest this kind of emotional energy into just anyone. They don't waste their time unless the relationship genuinely matters to them. I really want you to internalize how important that distinction is. The next phrase follows a similar pattern, something like, "What can I do to make you understand? I hear you. I see you." This tends to come up more often in relationships where one partner leans anxious or preoccupied and the other leans avoidant. And the anxious partner is expressing something like, "You're not hearing me, you're not understanding what I'm trying to say." In response, sometimes with visible frustration, the avoidant partner might say things like, "What more can I say? What do you want me to do to make you understand? I hear you. I'm acknowledging what you're saying. I'm not trying to dismiss you." Even if, on the surface, their behavior might look like dismissal, and honestly, sometimes it genuinely is unintentionally dismissive, when they say this, it still reflects real care underneath. A lot of the time, they simply don't yet have the emotional tools or vocabulary in that moment to give you exactly what you need to hear. So if your partner says something like this to you, one really helpful thing you can do is respond with specificity. Tell them clearly, "I'd like to hear you say this particular thing to me," or, "When I bring something up, I need you to respond in more detail." Give them a concrete, specific request, and there's a good chance they'll actually follow through, because avoidant individuals generally don't put in that kind of effort for just anyone. So why would they make that effort for you? Because you're the person they genuinely want to be with. Tell them clearly what you need, because avoidant individuals typically aren't in the habit of investing that kind of energy into people who don't matter deeply to them. And I understand avoidant individuals can be genuinely difficult to navigate in a relationship. I'm not trying to oversimplify or overcomplicate this topic, but I do think you deserve to have this information laid out clearly. Here's the next one, and if you've watched my channel before, you've probably already picked up on this pattern. Sometimes they'll say something like, "I don't really like it when you do that. It frustrates me." They'll point out something specific that bothers them about your behavior. Why does that indicate that you're the one? And why does it show that they care about you? Because when avoidant individuals are bothered by something, their default response is usually to withdraw, to create emotional distance, to shut you out entirely, or simply to not care enough about the relationship to even bring it up in the first place. But if they're actually telling you directly, "I don't like it when you do that, it frustrates me," what that really means underneath is, "I trust that you'll actually meet my needs if I tell you what they are. So please take that seriously if it happens." They're opening themselves up to you in that moment, and learning to do exactly that is a skill avoidant individuals genuinely need to develop as part of their healing process anyway. The fact that they're already practicing it with you, the person they love and value, shows real trust. They believe you'll actually respond to what they're expressing. And by the way, if your avoidant partner is doing this with you, you've probably earned that trust through consistent effort. I'm not saying you have to prove yourself to earn someone's love. That's not the point I'm making. But realistically, if someone is at this stage with you, you've likely demonstrated a lot of trustworthiness and taken accountability many times along the way. So genuinely give yourself credit here. If your partner has reached this point in the relationship with you, you've probably put up with a fair amount to get here, and I'm sorry it took as long as it did, whatever that timeline looked like for you. But ultimately, this is a good sign. These are genuinely positive developments. You deserve to know that if this is happening in your relationship, you are loved by this person. It's also worth noting how much courage it actually takes for an avoidant person to voice a complaint like this out loud in the first place. Remember, the entire framework they grew up with tells them that needing anything from another person is a liability. So when they name a specific frustration, when they say, "This bothers me, please stop doing this," they're implicitly admitting that your behavior has the power to affect them. That admission runs directly against everything they were taught about staying independent and unaffected. If you respond to that moment with defensiveness or dismissal, there's a real risk they retreat back into silence and stop bringing things up altogether, not because the issue stopped mattering to them, but because the vulnerability of raising it wasn't met with the safety they needed. So if your avoidant partner brings a complaint to you directly instead of just quietly pulling away, that's usually a sign worth protecting, even if the delivery isn't always graceful. The next phrase is extremely common. Something like, "I'm not mad, don't worry about it," or "I'm not upset, let's just work on it going forward," or "I promise, I'm really not mad." When an avoidant partner says something along the lines of, "I'm not mad," it genuinely tends to reflect real care, even though this particular phrase shows up more frequently with anxious or preoccupied individuals too. It's especially meaningful when they're clearly a little frustrated underneath, but they're still consciously choosing to say, "I'm not mad, let's just work through this and move forward together." What they're really trying to communicate is, "This isn't as big of a deal as it might feel right now. We're okay. We're fine. I promise." Some avoidant individuals will even say things like, "Don't worry, we're good." I hear avoidant partners say this a lot, especially once they've become more emotionally open within the relationship. "Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. We're okay. Let's move forward. We're on the same page." I hear a version of that constantly in couples therapy sessions too. "Don't worry, we're on the same page. Let's just move past this. It's forgotten." And when they say that, they genuinely mean it. They're not just saying it to end the conversation. They're actually feeling okay, feeling good about where things stand. So when your partner tells you these things, believe them. It's worth pointing out that this particular phrase can be easy to misread if you come from a more anxious attachment style yourself, because sometimes "don't worry, we're good" can look from the outside like avoidance of the topic entirely, like they're brushing something under the rug instead of actually resolving it. And to be fair, that distinction matters, and it's not always easy to tell the difference in the moment. But generally speaking, if the underlying issue actually did get addressed, if you both said what needed to be said and they're choosing to let it go rather than keep circling it, then this phrase is a sign of security, not avoidance. Avoidant individuals who are growing and healing eventually get better at distinguishing between conflict that needs resolving and conflict that's already been resolved and just needs to be released. Learning to actually let something go instead of either exploding over it or shutting down about it is a genuine developmental milestone for someone with this attachment style, and it deserves to be recognized as one. I really want you all to understand that yes, avoidant individuals can be genuinely complicated to be in a relationship with. There's no getting around that. But it's a comforting thing to recognize when someone genuinely truly loves you, especially when you love them back just as deeply. So with that said, if you found this helpful, feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.